Baraa, Shiban, thank you so much for talking to us on The World in 10. We've seen a number of attacks in the Red Sea by the Houthis over the last week. Why has there been this uptick?
Well, the Houthis, unfortunately, I would say it's a problem that is going to stay for some time, and it's a group now that wants to exercise a form of a regional influence. It wants to have that form of regional deterrence. It can push against the US, the UK, kind of this idea of Iranian revolutionary, but more of Western, what it believes is Western dominance in the region. And because of the degrading of Hezbollah specifically, the Houthis feel that now is an ideal time to inherit that role as being the main force within the axis of resistance, the Iran's a group of militias, network, or allies, whatever you want to call them. They feel now it is their moment. It is their time to shine, to take on, basically spearhead this resistance against specifically Israel, but also more importantly, what it believes is U.S. Dominance in the region.
We had just a few weeks ago Donald Trump proclaiming sort of great success, a ceasefire with the Houthis. Why have they taken this move to start attacking shipping again right now? And is this the end for a ceasefire, to quote Donald Trump?
Well, that ceasefire was fragile at best. Yes, at that time they managed to reach some form of understanding. The Iranians were also keen to tone down the escalation in the region, but for the Houthis, this was just one stepping stone, if you'd like, out of many. In my opinion, this wave of attacks is something that we're going to witness. So the ceasefire is always that it's a ceasefire. It's not an end of a conflict. And for the Houthis, they believe this is just one round of a conflict, of a battle, out of many rounds that are coming.
So you see this as something that's going to escalate?
Yes, it's definitely an uptick for the Houthis. This is going to be a way of trying to exert their influence. They want to appear in front of especially the Gulf monarchies, that they are not, they are a force to reckon with. They're not just a ragtag militia that they can just toss aside and pretend that they do not exist. And because the war is kind of still waging in Gaza, that is a perfect excuse for the Houthis to play the role that traditionally it was Hezbollah that was playing that role. Now they think it is their time, it's their moment.
How do you think the Houthis would escalate their action? What further actions would they take?
So the Houthis start by they rely heavily on the proliferation of drones, automated attacks on ships. They know the strategic importance of the Red Sea, the amount of trade that goes from there, and every time they'll try to test and then escalate, test their capabilities and keep building on that. They rely on technology, and that's something that they work very closely with the Iranians to develop their capabilities. And it is something similar to how they started the attacks on Saudi Arabia. At the beginning, a few missiles, rockets that didn't actually reach anywhere. But as time was moving, their ability to target oil facilities, to target really deep into Saudi Arabia, significantly improved. And that's what the Houthis are working on. How can they build their capabilities in a way that it makes them capable to hit ships, block the Red Sea, block the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and do the effect that they want to see in the on the trade routes, the global trade routes, going back and forth from the Red Sea, but also beyond, if they can reach to the Arab Sea, to the Indian Ocean, and so on. That's something that they will try to do as well.
To focus on the specifics of the most recent attacks, with the Eternity Sea, which was attacked earlier this week, they produced these, rather slickly produced drone videos, this very ostentatious sinking of the ship with controlled explosives, and then they've obviously released that to the world. Is that use of controlled explosives to completely sink a ship, is that a new tactic?
Well, the ability to use bombs and detonations is something that they've used in the conflict against Yemen all the time. So when they were faced against local opponents, they would film themselves bombing their opponents' houses, homes, villages, and so on. And that's in order to spread fear. Now, by time, their ability to produce this kind of media savvy, slick videos, as you call it, improved, and it's to make the same effect. First, it gives confidence for the base, for the loyalists, that they are now able to do this in the sea in such a way that it's more of a making a scene. And the second is basically to spread that image of influence, power, ability, their role within this axis of resistance.
And with Eternity Sea, we've also seen the Houthis take 6 hostages. Is that an evolution of their tactics, particularly in how they attack shipping in the Red Sea? And what effect will it have, say, on how companies, countries interact with them?
Well, the thing about hostages, it's something that the Iranians have done for quite a long time. So if you see how the RUSI used to, I would say, manage their relationship with the West, we've seen many. It could be journalists, but it could be bloggers. It could be tourists visiting Tehran, and then they would abduct them, accuse them of espionage, spying, and then do trading with whatever they want with Western countries. And that tactic proven to be effective. The Iranians have shown that the West eventually would give them a lot, would concede to a lot of their demands. And you're having many groups within that axis of resistance learning from each other as they're seeing. They have the same structure in terms of how they built themselves around the model of Hezbollah, but also learning from each other in terms of their warfare. And now, how can they, if you'd say, manage the relationship with Western countries? And hostages seems to be a very effective tool, a very effective way of, if you want Western governments to concede to your demands.
How directly is Iran and its government involved in the planning and the ordering of, say, all these specific attacks, or do they sort of give the Houthis a sort of carte blanche to do what they want?
Well, the thing is, people try sometimes to describe them just as mere proxies. It's not a very accurate description. They're closely allied, very intertwined in terms of how they run the relationship. They know that the Iranians, the IRGC, is kind of the bigger partner in this relationship. So the Iranians don't need to go into the intricacies and the details of how the Houthis run their daily affairs, but they have enough influence on the group in terms of what do they want them to do on a regional level. For the Iranians, there was, first of all, they wanted some group on the southern border with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia have always been kind of a regional rival for Iran, so they always need to have that form of group that can keep poking the Saudis. Second, also influence amongst the Muslim world. Both the Houthis and the Iranians do not view the Saudi leadership as worthy of being custodians of the holy sites in Mecca and Medina, and with that, it gives you that influence over the Muslim world and Muslims across the globe, and third, it also helps. For a long time, Iranians wanted a lot of those proxies to keep the battle away from Iran. Since the 80s, after they fought the Iran-Iraq war, since then they've tried as much as possible to avoid having a conflict on their territories. One way is to push it abroad, push it to Lebanon, go to other territories, go to Syria, Iraq, and now Yemen. Although, we're seeing the shortcomings with when Israel finally decided that they're no longer going to play or dance that tune, and they're taking the battle into Iran itself.
You've mentioned there some of their other aims and rivalries with other countries. What is the risk here that other countries get dragged into a conflict with the Houthis? We've still had the Houthis and Israel exchanging rocket fire sort of for a while now. What is the risk that, yes, others get dragged in and it escalates further?
Well, the first, I would say, group of countries who can be easily dragged into this are the Gulf countries. There is a ceasefire, there's a pause, but not an end to the conflict that started in 2015. And everyone understands that. So everyone trying to delay, I would say, what is inevitably coming, which is another round of escalation. The Saudis are trying to avoid that. The Houthis, for now, are trying to avoid that, but they both know it's coming down the road. So that they can easily be dragged. If the oil facilities started to be hit, then they might find a need to push back against the Houthis. The internal conflict, the civil war in Yemen, there is a pause, but the war still didn't end. Even if we try in here in London or in DC to pretend that's over, but it's far from over. So and I think that's the risk of the having in my opinion, a policy of delaying. We kept watching this conflict from distance, trying not to get too involved, but also trying to pretend that it's not there, and it kept dragging. And finally, now I think it's coming to bite.
What a lot of countries around the world who are reliant on the Red Sea as a shipping lane will be thinking is, okay, how do we stop these attacks? That's sort of priority number one. Before, it's sort of been Western countries, the US particularly, moving ships into the region, moving military assets into the region. Is it just a show of strength, do you think, or what else needs to be done to try to reduce the attacks?
Well, a show of strength helps, but that's not the whole picture. This is it's a problem for, in the Red Sea, but at its origin, it's a land problem. It's because the Houthis control the big part of the west coast of Yemen. And again, we saw this is again a set of failed policies back in 2018 and 2019, when the Yemeni forces were very, very close to dislodging the Houthis from the whole west coast of Yemen. It was actually Western governments who rushed quickly to enforce a ceasefire and signed a deal that eventually worked to benefit the Houthis. So at the end of the day, you want a reliable partner who understands its role inside Yemen, but also understand its role within the region as being, participating and contributing to peace and security. That's not the case with the Houthis, because simply they don't trade foreign relations in the terms of benefits that other countries or states, responsible states, would see it. They see the foreign relations based on influence, dominance, and show of power. And the other thing, it's because their ambitions that extend beyond just the borders of Yemen. So again, what I'm trying to say here is this is a problem, unfortunately, that is not going to go away anytime soon.
You mentioned that the Houthis' presence on land and that being sort of the origin of the problem for the attacks in the sea. Surely then this is just going to intensify airstrikes, whether that's from Israel or from the US or indeed from Gulf neighbours.
Yeah, and the Houthis understand that, and they rely on still having control over a vast territory much bigger than even Lebanon, for example. And the one of the main faults, I would say, of how even the Trump administration and before them the Biden administration dealt with the Houthis, you cannot just rely on an air campaign. Such groups rely heavily on having terrain, and the Houthis, more than any other group, they fear losing terrain. That's the main thing that they are afraid of. Right now, they don't see that risk coming. They don't see in any way that the US or even Israel will try to push them in a way to start losing territories. And so far, they can sustain airstrikes from above. The terrain in North Yemen works to their advantage. It's very mountainous. There's plenty of places to move and hide. And so far, so yes, it's not pleasant that they are getting bombed now and then, but they can sustain that. They can survive.
You say the problem's not going to go away. Israel's strategy with other Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, has been to degrade them as significantly as they can. Do you think, therefore, from what you're saying, that Israel, Western allies, need to accept that the Houthis are not going anywhere and need to find some sort of accommodation with them?
Well, you need to have both at the same time, in my opinion. You need to have a form of this is the arrangement that while you're reaching out to the Houthis, we know there have been round of talks between the Americans and the Houthis via the Omanis, for example. There have been round of talks in Oman, in Muscat, but you need to have both. You have a sign of we are willing to reach some form of arrangement, but also we can work with our partners inside Yemen to actually make you start losing terrain. They need to feel that the threat of them losing territory is real, and it's much closer than they anticipate. Only then they will start taking these threats seriously. Other than that, if you just rely on airstrikes, that's not going to do much damage. So again, you can work to find some form of accommodation, but you also need to show that you have the deterrence, you have the ability to push back. And the second of all, not to remember, the Houthis are not really popular inside Yemen. They rely heavily on crushing local dissents, crushing the tribal communities and local communities. Thousands and thousands of Yemenis are in jail. People, who voice their criticism of how they operate, and it's a very, very oppressive regime. It's not like they gain public consent in the areas they control.
Let's touch on the future of the Houthis then here, because we used to refer to them as sort of Houthi rebels. Now it seems much more like they are, as you say, a regime. They have a power base, they have territory, they've got, as you're describing, judicial power, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem very embedded in Yemen now.
They are. I mean, that's for sure. So the main issue of how when you start seeing the future of the Houthis, it's very important to understand how they see themselves, and they see themselves as they are going to inherit the role of Hezbollah. They are going to be this big power, regional power, within the axis of resistance. So they view themselves that they are going to play a much bigger role that goes beyond the border of Yemen, and they have an ally in terms of Iran that is willing to support them to that extent, because it helps to distract the attention away from the IRGC, from what Iran is doing inside, if you have this thing happening. And for the Houthis, this is one way to play a much bigger role than many people anticipated at the beginning of the war in Yemen. So they don't see this as a detrimental to them, in terms of, this is going to lead to a backlash. At the moment, they see, no, this is our moment to shine.
And you say they see themselves in this role as the new Hezbollah, the preeminent Iranian-backed group that's a resistance to Israel, to Western presence in the region, to other Gulf states. Is that the reality of their military strength compared to the likes of Hezbollah and Hamas now? And is that how Tehran sees them, as their new preeminent militant group in the region?
So it's still, I think, very early to determine for a fact if the Iranians would just start heavily just relying on them, or before they start focusing attention on Hezbollah and then trying to rebuild the capabilities of Hezbollah. Hezbollah have the advantage that they are still at the border of Israel. Yes, they've been degraded, but you can still rebuild from, they still have the legacy of fighting rounds of conflict with Israel. They take on the Palestinian cause. They took it for quite a long time, but at least for the time being, there is an uptick in terms of the support that the IRGC and Iran is lending to the Houthis. There are more IRGC officers, experts, who are going to build the Houthis' capabilities. So it could be, but I think it's only time will tell if that's where the Iranians and the IRGC is shifting their focus, or is it just a temporary measure while Hezbollah basically get their act together and starts rebuilding itself.
Well, it sounds like it's something we'll be returning to in future in that case. Baraa, Shiban, thank you so much for your time and speaking to us on The World in 10.